Together. Visit alphawealthgroup.com for a free report.
Mike Manokin runs the Democratic House floor for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois. You can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, how it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when you're moving out. I said when you're moving
Dan
out.
and Amy, we'll keep you updated on that story Mike Scott mentioned, the shooting in Utrecht, train or tram in Utrecht, apparently.
And there's all the schools are on lockdown, and one person is reported dead, and they're investigating it as if it's a terrorist attack.
So we'll keep you updated on that. Now we'll update you with the latest installment of Moving Out. This time, DuPage County. After we did North Shore last week, it's funny, I got a tweet. Thank God I live in DuPage County, said one guy.
Oh, really?
No.
Are they counting their blessings? Why?
No, I don't understand what people don't understand. There is nowhere to hide in Chicagoland from the highest property taxes in the nation. As one tweeter put it, equity has no home here. That's the story in Illinois, and that includes DuPage County. Maybe this is the way to try to have this really resonate. I don't know. I'm sort of at a loss these days. Think about the property taxes you pay. Think about the reaction you have to, 12 cents more for a Mountain Dew in Cook County once upon a time. Or the reaction you have for increasing the state income tax, or proposals to increase it, or proposals for a city income tax, or proposals for a dedicated property tax kicker to pay unfunded pension liabilities.
If you're a smoker, it's $8 more a pack here than if you go to Indiana.
The gas taxes.
It's just unbelievable.
Think about all that.
Booze, everything.
So you pay attention to that, and you get upset. Now think about your the property taxes, highest in the nation that you pay. And then when you go to sell your home, you write effectively a one-time check for, depending on the home value, how long you've held it, 50 grand, 100 grand, 150 grand, 500 grand, $1 million. You have a lump sum tax hit when you sell your home in the tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands, and in some cases at the very high end, millions of dollars. Does that at all resonate with you? 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. 64636DA, turnkey.pro text line. I wonder if it resonates with Vipul Shah. He was one of the individuals who bought a unit in the development by Newman Homes in Hanover Park. Hanover Park's Church Street Station, which opened in the fall of 2005. Right across from the Metro, when these communities were all doing their downtown redevelopments.
Oh, that's right.
Condos across from train stations and whatnot. Yeah. So Vipul Shah paid $386,000, constant dollars, for a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,000 square foot unit in this development in Hanover Park. In June of 06. 386 in June of 06. 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,000 square feet. He sold it on February 28th of this year for $208,000.
Oof.
So he paid $69,000 in property taxes over 12 years. His last property tax bill, $8,600, 4.2% of his sale value, 4 times the national average. 4.2%. You want to tell me about the North Shore again? That's higher than any place in the North Shore. And $69,000 over 12 years of ownership. And then when he sold his home, he effectively wrote a check for $178,000 because that's the lost value. So does a $178,000 check that you write to, the ether, because it's already money that's been spent, you were writing it all the way along as local governments were seizing your home equity. Does that upset you? Does that motivate you? Do you internalize what we're talking about when we talk about these confiscatory property taxes and the blank check spending of your local units of government that you get shamed into? How much shame or virtue, I guess is a better way to put it, how much virtue does $178,000 get you on the way out the door? How much does that buy? I'd like somebody to quantify it for me. Unincorporated Glen Ellen, Brian and Gina Newton sold their 5-bedroom, 4-bath home for $460 on February 28th, just last month. They paid $644 for it in November of 2005, constant dollars. So I guess I'll ask you again. 13 years they owned it, $125,000 in property taxes.
Ouch.
Their last property tax bill, effectively 2.5% of home value, which is, again, twice the national average. So let me ask you again, particularly in leafy Glen Ellen, right next door to where I grew up, where certainly the zeitgeist is, right, those blank checks to the schools. How about that? $125,000 in property taxes, plus on the way out the door, you write a check for $184,000. Does that strike you at all? Did you walk away after writing that $184,000 check and say, that was worth it? We got our money's worth in Glen Ellen. $184,000 plus the $125,000 you paid in property taxes for over 13 years.
So is anybody making money off their house?
I mean, there are going to be outliers depending on when you bought and the particulars, but
still, every year we get sucked in with all those high property taxes.
You cannot. I don't know. You just can't generate a return on investment at this tax point. Glendale Heights, which is a middle income community, highest in DuPage County, effective tax rate for homes sold the last 6 months of last year, 4.27%. $5,500 median tax bill on a median sale price of $130,000. And then Hanover Park, Wayne, Bartlett, Carroll Stream, Roselle, Woodridge, Bensonville, Aurora, Winfield, Bloomingdale, West Chicago, Glen Ellen, Lombard, St. Charles, Wheaton, Warrenville, all above the state average, which is twice the national average. I mean, I guess compare it again. I'll compare it across the border in Northwest Indiana. Going back to that Glen Ellen home.
Yeah.
Right. It was 5-bedroom, 4-bath, sold for $460, paid $644 13 years ago. 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath in Crown Point, sold last fall for $460. Its taxes were $4,100, 0.9%. A buyer of the identically priced Crown Point home pays $348 per month versus $948 a month in Glen Ellen, 3x. That's it, but it's not just that. There's one more layer of analysis here to consider. That delta, that $600 a month in difference between the identically priced home in Crown Point to the one in Glen Ellen, that amounts to more than $100,000 in purchasing power for the buyer, right? Because all of this is factored into what you can borrow, so the home that you can get and finance. So that in addition to the balloon tax payment effectively you're writing when you sell, you also have an opportunity cost you're paying on the front end for the home that you couldn't get because of the property taxes you're going to pay. You see? Larry in DuPage and Bartlett, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hey, good morning, Dan and Amy. Dan, after all these years, I found you with a very specific technical error. Those houses in Hanover Park you referenced by the metro station, those are in beloved Cook County. On the other hand, if they were in DuPage County, it'd probably be just as bad.
Well, right, because, Hanover Park's split. Okay, thanks for the call, Larry. It doesn't really speak
like
to the
Bensonville,
numbers.
Right?
Yeah.
Half of it's in DuPage, half in Cook.
Is Bensonville half and half? Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really, it still speaks to the numbers of the numbers, but yeah, okay, so county lines. There's some of that. Okay, fine. Mike on the north side.
Good morning, kids. Thanks for taking my call. Dan, the one thing you're forgetting about these property taxes is we've made the deal with the devil. They fund our educational system. I mean, 55%, almost 60% of your tax bill goes for education.
Not in
so
Chicago.
if you've got a brood of kids, if you have a brood of kids in the public schools, you're paying for their tuition. Now, if you want to solve that, freeze property taxes and go to a user fee for public education, or else if you're in DuPage, I think you just have to wait for Caston and Norwood. They're going to make everything better, aren't they?
Underwood.
They're your congressman. Underwood, Overwood, whatever.
Morningwood.
She's not going
right.
to do anything. Morningwood.
Right.
Caston. Castigator.
Well, they're federal officials. This is a local and state problem, isn't it?
I know, but they always take credit when something goes right, and when something goes wrong, they point fingers.
Thanks for the call, Mike. You don't have to do a user fee. These states we're talking about, since I mentioned the Crown Point comparison to Glen Ellen. Again, just to remind people, in Indiana, they have schools and police departments and fire departments. Yep, it's true. Local units of government, the whole thing. And by the way, their schools, generally speaking, are on par with Illinois' at present. What you're paying for better schools? You think that's what you're paying for? You think you've seen K through 12 improve at the same rate your property taxes have gone up in the last 20 years? Say, come on, nobody believes that because it's not true. Some people might want to tell you that it's true, but the product speaks for itself. So it's not true. Yes, cap property taxes, force the state to be the primary funder of K through 12 education. It's a daisy chain of spending restraint, which is ultimately what you need. Right? Put handcuffs on local officials and leverage that discipline to demand discipline at the state level because the state has to go from providing 27% of K through 12 funding in Illinois to being the primary funder, meaning 50% plus. Yeah. Then you're starting to really shift the paradigm, and that's what has to happen. Chet and Lyle.
Hi. Good morning, Dan. You probably have heard about the only school district in the state that has a referendum on the ballot to reduce property taxes. That's in Lyle 202. And it's very interesting dynamic where it is people are ferociously defending the status quo, and the school district and the school board and the administration are taking advantage of the implied trust people have placed in them to give them fabricated information just to preserve the high overtaxation, acceptance of declining scores versus their peers, and not holding administrators accountable. It's really a very disappointing dynamic there. While with some modest spending, taxation reduction can really benefit the entire community and put more money back in their pockets.
Thanks for the call, Chet. Yeah, to your point, Lyle, 2.18%, $7,000 median tax bill, and a $322,000 home last 6 months of last year. And here's the other thing. When people move out, particularly productive people in these suburbs, and in the city too, when they go to the suburbs because they need to for school or for whatever other reason, and then that's the one step away from being out of the state. You have to understand, it's very much Illinois is very much like Chicago. When you lose tens of thousands of people each year, it's who you're losing too, right? A third.
Well-skilled, smart people that know that if they want to save some of their money, they should leave the state.
Right, but they have a negative multiplier effect just as property taxes do, their departure.
Oh, yeah.
Because what Chicago is doing is trying to prop up the city on 250,000 people in 5 wards. So when you say Chicago has 2.8 million people, yeah, but it has 250,000 people that are paying the freight. So when you lose tens of thousands of people from that cohort, you're increasing the pace of that death spiral. And it's the same thing writ large in Illinois. Oh, we lost a few people. It's no big deal. Cullerton, Madigan, et cetera, will tell you. No, it is a big deal. And it's getting bigger with each passing day. Thus, the hammering people are taking is getting bigger. George in Libertyville.
Hey, Dan, 2 questions. Number one, what percentage of all the taxes that are collected right now are going to fund this ridiculous public pension system? And number 2, do you think we are headed, hopefully for bankruptcy so we can, get out from underneath these obligations?
Yeah, thanks for the call, George.
I don't know if bankruptcy is the answer.
Well, on the pension piece, it's like 1 in 5 state dollars, and it's tracking to 1 in 4. It's just gonna eat everything else up. That plus Medicaid. In terms of bankruptcy, we're functionally bankrupt, the city and the state. There's just no question about it, and a lot of municipalities are too. But there needs to be some animating statute. There needs to be a holding by a federal bankruptcy court judge that provides some sort of workout, Detroit style, for Chicago, say, for example, and then potentially federal action if you wanted to talk about bankruptcy at the state level. And the other thing is the credit markets need to seize up. Illinois, Chicago need to no longer be able to borrow to force that discipline, to force that reckoning. When does that come? I don't know. I would have thought it would have come long ago, but people seek yield, and they know you've got the full faith and credit of the state of Illinois, whatever that's worth, but the power to tax. So they roll the dice. Bad news, which is why if and when that does come to pass, as it did in Detroit, I will have very little sympathy for the bondholders who take haircuts after fomenting the deeper descent into madness in Illinois. Mark in Valpo.
Hey, Dan, one of the problems I see is that these people are moving from Illinois, but they're bringing their politics with them. Look at Lake County. Lake County, Indiana, is heavily Democrat, and they keep voting that way. Porter County, where I'm at, is leaning more and more Democrat, and they just don't get it. They don't get that their politics got them in the situation they're in Illinois, and now they're bringing it to Indiana.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear that concern. Thanks for the call, Mark. It's going to be up to Northwest Indianans who do get it to introduce the migrants to the Hoosier culture rather than having the migrants introduce the Hoosiers to the Cook County culture.
It's what Chicago is talking about. It's Chicago's Morning Answer with